Well, this feels a little soon after the last one, but let's look at another Beast Wars Versus pack. Now, I'm going to put out a fair warning here, I don't have or know enough people that have every single color variant of these molds, so I'm just going to look at this pack today. Well, I've got some plans this week, I'm under a little bit of a time crunch, you get it. Because I did plan on reviewing every single one of these packs in release order with all of their repaints in the videos, but not sure quite how achievable that's going to be, even with Mr. Completionism at my side. Maybe I'll come back later on and cover the repaints in a different video, but for now, let's take a look at BWVS 06 Showdown of Treachery Dinobot versus Tarantulus, which was the first of the Beast Wars versus packs that I picked up. Didn't even go out of my way to do it. Keen just messaged me one day and was just like, I've found this, send me the money, I'll get it for you. I was like, sure. But you know what, that kind of spontaneity can sometimes lead to really good things, just like this pack, which is a fantastic set. So let's get into it, and start I think with Tarantulus, since we have looked at this mold on the channel before, a long time ago, so I think it's high time we gave him another go. The sculpted detail and proportions on this figure are fantastic. There's absolutely no deviations in sculpting from the original Legacy release, but it still is a damn good mold. The proportions are on point, he's very gangly with a very blocky torso, broad shoulders, love that. All of the textural detail on the pecs and the abdomen, the crotch, the thighs, shins, everything. It's all spot on. I love his big bulbous backpack, and the smooth head with a million eyes. It's an absolutely fantastic looking figure, and the only issues that I have with the sculpt overall are just some slight holes in the shins and the spider legs. But even then, in terms of hollowness, this is nowhere near the worst that I've ever seen. I think my love for this sculpt is helped by my appreciation for Tarantulus's overall design. If you ask me, this is one of the best designs Beast Wars had to offer, and the integration of all the Beast Mode components into the overall look of the robot mode feels so much more natural than a lot of other characters. Yeah, Megatron's a cool design, but that's a man wearing a T-Rex. This looks like a tarantula unfurled, and I love it. Now, the deco here isn't actually too dissimilar from the original Legacy version, just with some slightly different shades and some extra paint apps here and there. All the colors are a lot darker and more saturated, like the yellows, the purples, the greens. The black remains basically the same, but is implemented in a lot more places around the figure, like the kneecaps and the back of the head, and in the abdomen, and there's a lot more metallic paint on the go here. The green has a more metallic hue than the original figure, and the pecs are painted in this gorgeous gleaming magenta. I absolutely love this deco. It's so simplistic and yet so much more vibrant than the previous version, stands above it well and truly. Now, the accessories remain exactly the same as the Legacy version. He's got his anchor shot in all black, he's got his buzzsaw with the silver blade. The blade has a peg and the anchor shot has a hole, so you can plug them together if you want to, or you can just plug them directly into the hands. If you can call those that. Pincers. Yeah. Pincers. The accessories work nicely with the look of the figure, but they're nothing too special. What is pretty special is the posing, which is absolutely fantastic on this figure. The head is on a ball joint that doesn't have a great deal of range. He's got backwards butterflies, the shoulders move out fairly decently, and they can go around all the way. All of the spider legs have a ball joint in the middle that are on a cutout, so they can move inwards and they can rotate around fairly freely. There's a bicep swivel at the top of the arm that brings the spider legs with it, and one at the bottom of the arm that just rotates where the elbow is. Elbow can bend standardly. He's got a waist swivel that's fairly free but slightly impeded by the backpack. Hips can go out standardly, back not too far because of the backpack again, but forward pretty far. He's got thigh swivels, double knees. The feet can point up and down really far, and he's got a really good ankle pivot. The posability on the upper portion of this figure is fine, but the legs are where it really shines. The double knees and the stable mobile feet just give so much to this guy, and it helps that compared to the Legacy version, mine is built 100 times better. This thing is solid as a rock. Now, transformation on this figure is pretty good, but nothing to write home about. It's simple, it's pretty quick, it does some interesting things. It is a little bit hard sometimes to force the backpack around the body, but once you get the right leverages, everything's absolutely fine. And once you get everything plugged together, you're left with this horrible spider mode. And I don't mean that it's bad, I mean that it's disgusting. This is a very good beast mode. Now, this is a little bit of a brick. All you get in terms of posing are the pincers like in the robot mode and the ball joints on the legs, but the actual look itself is just so consistent that I can't help but love it. The proportions of the spider mode, the thorax, or the eyes, the angle that they sculpted the legs at, the way it all works with the consistency of the colors, the yellow striping, the way that all the green hides away, I love so much about this mode. There's some really clever weapon storage underneath with the anchor shot plugging between the legs and the buzzsaw just plugging underneath in a 5mm port. You get just enough posing potential that you can get him up on his hind legs like he's squaring up. There's just so much to love here, but also it's gross Get it off my desk, please. Yeah, I think you can gather that I really like Tarantulus. This is a really solid figure overall. The beast mode isn't quite to my taste, but the robot mode, the posing, the way that he integrates with the accessories, the actual solidity of it all, it's just absolutely masterful. And it kind of makes me a little bit disappointed by Dinobot, because he's not the same. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a good mold, it's just not a great one, especially compared to Tarantulus. Like, the sculpted detail here is all incredible. While I don't like this design as much as I did Tarantulus's, I can't say that it does the details any worse. The way that they have the faux head on the chest works really nicely for me, especially considering that the real head is in there. It looks a little gappy, but I don't mind. The legs are absolutely incredible, all the details, the little ribs, the ridges and bumps on the thighs, it's all accounted for and it looks superb. The backpack isn't the best I've ever seen, but it is nice and small and concise. And the actual head sculpt is absolutely remarkable. This might be the best one we've seen so far from the Beast Wars Versus line. Looks like they ripped it right out of the show. But the proportions don't quite do it for me. Like, this all looks pretty much perfect until you get to the arms, which are so weedy and thin. And that's not even mentioning the big gaps on the forearms, which do bug me a lot more than Tarantulus's. These arms are my main point of content with the robot mode. They look a little bit off, they feel a little bit off, I'll get to that later. They just bring the rest of this mode down for me. Fortunately though, I can't fault the deco. That is absolutely incredible on this figure. The actual color choices are very basic, but they do the job fantastically. And all the paint is absolutely spot on. The metallic blue is beautiful, all the gold is fantastic, I love the bits of gunmetal, and those light brown stripes that are just like the stripes on Megatron. I absolutely love the look of it. And it does tie the figure together a lot better as a display piece at least. Now this figure comes with 2 accessories. You get the whole parts forming tail, which yes is a little bit of a shame that they couldn't have integrated it in some other way, but it is accurate, so oh well. Cracking that open reveals 2 things. 1, a nice layer of metallic red paint on the inside of the tail, and 2, the sword on the inside. Splitting these apart, you can give them to him as the sword and shield, and they look absolutely fantastic. The hinges where it opens out on the shield are a little bit floppy, that's a shame, but the sword does look absolutely superb. Love that metallic pink paint. But unfortunately, both of these accessories are let down a little bit by his awkward posing. The head is on a very unlimited ball joint, I have no complaints there. The shoulders go out at the shoulder and at the torso, but that torso joint is massively too loose and it brings the shoulders down quite a bit. The shoulders can also go all the way around, that's too loose too. There's bicep swivels that are too tight, decent elbows, he has wrist swivels, the wrists can flap forward and back, and the hands can open and close. There's a kind of wobbly waist swivel that is off-centered, goddammit. Hips can move out standardly, and a little loosely. His hips can't really go backwards at all because of the butt sculpt, but they can go forward pretty far. He has very tight thigh swivels, very tight standard knees. The ankles can move up a little bit and down pretty far, and he has pretty good pivots. The posability isn't too bad here in theory, there's a couple of joints that are impeded in awkward ways, but it's just the tolerances and the overall feel that let this guy down. He's just not any fun to mess around with and pose because of all those loose and overly tight joints. And the weird ways that the wrists work because they need to be the dino feet just impede the way that he can use the sword. It's just all very compromised and I struggle to enjoy this figure. And the transformation isn't really any better than the posing. There are some little highlights. I like the way that the torso kind of unfurls. There's some clever parts usage here, but getting everything all lined up with the legs is a little bit challenging, and I really don't like that the dino legs don't tab in at all. And the dino mode is just bad, I don't like it. Actually this time. Like, the actual sculpting where it does decide to be a dinosaur is pretty good. The dino head is great, it's got a lot of personality. All of the skin texturing is really good, especially that little patch on the front, and the colours also work really well here. But Jesus, that's a lot of kibble. Like, you can see it from just about every single angle of the figure, and it ruins it for me. It's just so compromised in this mode, and the posing is terrible as well. Like, the mouth can open, the head can move up and down, but it can't go side to side at all. There's universal joints at the shoulders that go every which way, the elbows can bend, and the wrists are on ball joints, but they're such an awkward shape, and look at those hands. What were they thinking with that sculpt? The hips can move out, but they break the sculpt, and they can't move forward or back at all. He's got knees that go forward and back, but they're pretty limited, and then the ankles are just the robot wrists again. But the tail is completely static, it looks too long, and it points upwards for some reason. And I don't know if it's just me, but that looks absolutely terrible. This isn't really that bad a figure overall. Like, as stated previously, the colours are stellar. The robot mode looks pretty good, mostly. But the actual feel and just the entirety of the dino mode, so compromised. It just massively brings down this figure. But do I feel like it brings down the pack as a whole? Not really. Like, we have a very mediocre figure with Dinobot, but incredible deluxe with Tarantulus. And that does kind of make it worthwhile to me. I don't feel robbed for this set. It would be very much up to you. If you're looking for a Dinobot and a Tarantulus nowadays, I think this is probably your best bet for mainline. But I will say, This pack is quite a downgrade from the previous one that we looked at. And if it wasn't for how genuinely stellar Tarantulus is, I'm not sure that I would be recommending this pack to you. At least it's not these molds. Oh god, I'm gonna have to buy that, aren't I? Oh, fuck!